In all the years that I've been a high school woodshop teacher, one of the most difficult things that my students have had in the advanced classes is figuring out what to build. In the beginning classes, I tell you what you're going to build and I give you all the measurements. However, when you're given the freedom of what do you want to build? What do you need? A lot of students just look at me and say, well, what should I build? And they don't know. So this video is going to give you a few keys and simple instructions on not only how to find something, but how to design it. And we're going to go through the process of how to do all the components of my style of building furniture. So there are a few things that you can do first to narrow down what you want. First, ask your parents. See if they have any ideas. We have to face the fact that they're the ones that put you in a class that they knew you were going to build something. Likely, your mom or dad have an idea of something they want already. If they don't, or at least they say it doesn't matter, go ahead and pick something. Number two is go online, get some ideas. Maybe somebody has built something that you already want. If you have an idea, go online and find a picture. That leads me to number three. If at all possible, find a photo of some kind of it. Not only will it help clarify for you and I what you're going to build, it'll help give you the dimensions, how big and how tall and how wide it has to be. So you at least have an idea of the direction you want to go. So some other things that you need to know once you decide what you want. If you know what you want, you kind of know it has a door, it has a drawer, you know what it wants to look like. You need to figure out how big it's going to be. Find the extents. In other words, how wide, how long, and how tall, deep, I mean. You need those numbers. So your best friend is just going to be a tape measure. Take it home, find it in your garage, pull it out, and figure it out. For example, the project that I'm going to be building will be a small entertainment center with some drawers and a door. I decided on that because my son needed it in his bedroom, but I needed to make sure it was going to fit. So he's got the end of his bed, and then he's got a little ways, and we have a door on the other end. You have to make sure it's going to fit correctly. So I took a tape measure and measured from the end of his bed to the edge of the door. It couldn't be any bigger than that. That was my max. And I found that 48 inches was what I like. From there, how tall do you want it? That's a little more give and take. Here are some standard measurements for height. A kitchen table is 30 inches tall. Now, a kitchen table is something you're meant to sit at. And if you're going to be working at this, you're going to be bent over at the back just a little bit. A countertop in a kitchen where you're meant to stand and work is 36 inches tall. Now, there's variations on those forever. You could have it as tall as you want or as small as you want. Just understand, if you are wanting to work at this bench comfortably, you're going to want it a certain height. If you plan to sit at it like a vanity or something like that, you're going to want it again a little lower height so that it's comfortable to sit at. Ask me for some measurements if that helps. But some of those you can find online as well. Width-wise, it's whatever, it's up to you. Just make sure it fits left to right where you want it to fit. Now, depth has some standards. It's either 12, 16, or 24 are your standard depths. And where do we get those numbers? 12, 16, and 24 all divide into 48. All of my sheet material that we purchase here is 48 inches wide. So I can get even number of 12s, an even number of 16s, or an even number of 24s. Now, if you're doing your sides out of solid wood, then it makes absolutely no difference. Now, I'm going to build the project we're doing out of solid wood. Therefore, I'm making it 18 inches deep. So if you're doing solid, take your pick. Again, use your tape measure, pull it out, and decide how far out into the room do you want it to extend. Sometimes it'll be very small, sometimes it can be a lot bigger. But I would caution against making anything wider than 24 inches. Most of the time, that's about your maximum. So I need your, how long is it? I need how wide it's going to be, how deep it's going to be, and how tall. Once you get your extents, then we're going to go to the board and I'm going to draw out the project I'm going to be making for this demonstration so you can see the process. Remember this, don't forget this, remember these measurements, and where do you put the components. So we'll zoom into the board a little bit and we'll go from there. So here we go. I've just completed drawing just a generic rectangle. All right, but I put my measurements on the board. This project is going to be 36 inches tall, 48 inches wide, and 18 inches deep. Now, I'm not going to worry about the depth as much because we're just looking at the face. But for the moment, we need to figure out where the door is going to be, where are the drawers, or whatever other elements you've got planned. But the biggest thing about this first drawing is it needs to be to scale. Now, if it's 48 inches wide and 36 tall, I know that it's going to be wider this way than tall this way, but it's got to look that way when you draw it. Otherwise, nothing's going to turn out the way you want. When I was in high school, I built a blanket chest, and I put the measurements on paper, but I drew it wrong. The measurements looked good. The picture looked great on the page, the way that I thought of it in my mind. But when I finished building the thing, it was the size of 2 coffins. I could have fit 2 of me in there. It was so big, it would not fit. It was not functional. So try your best to get it as close to scale as you could. Use a blank piece of paper, lined paper, graph paper. I have some of that too. Anything that'll help you get it to the proper scale. It doesn't need to be precise, but at least to scale approximately. Once you get this outside drawn, now in my classroom we do what's called traditional cabinet, traditional style. We have a face frame. So everything's going to be covered with a face frame. Now remember, when you do the face frame and draw it on here, the stiles, the ones that go vertical on the left and far right sides, they go from top to bottom, and they're always 1.5 inches thick, wide, if you will, 1.5 inches from left to right. So I simply draw approximately 1.5, and your eyeball is best, and then over here do the same. Great. There's my 2 stiles that go vertical. The rails across the top, they are smushed in between them. Okay, so I can draw that one at the top. Okay. And I could draw one at the bottom, but in my class we have what's called a base trim. It's a 3-inch tall, and that's my standard, 3-inch tall base trim. You can have base trim that's a different size if you want, but my machinery is set up for 3 inches, which means it doesn't do me any good to put a 1.5-inch stick at the bottom. I need it higher off of the base. So in my class, my standard is 4 inches from the floor will be your base trim. So there's one, and then I'll draw the other right there. And whether it's perfectly straight or not, you get the idea. But now I can erase that bottom part right there. Okay, so now I've got the outside face frames all drawn on. Now you need to decide, what am I doing with the guts? What's going on the inside? In my case, I want a center style, which is called a mullion, right down the middle. It doesn't matter if it's in the middle. I could have it over here. I could have it over here. I could put 2 in, so I have 3 sections. This is where you just make these choices. Totally up to you. I like the middle because I want my areas to be equal. They don't have to be. Just depends on what you want. So I'll just draw one in here. Draw another one there. Again, it's all 1.5. And there's my mullion. The next step, once you've got the outside kind of figured out, I wanted drawers on this side. So with a 36-inch tall cabinet, you just need to decide how many drawers you want with the height you've got. Again, pull out a tape measure and decide. Any drawer bigger than about 10 or so inches tall is just going to waste space. The drawer's so big, there's just not much you can do with it. You're just wasting a lot of vertical space. Again, if you make the drawers too small, you can't fit anything in there. So take a tape measure and I would line it up and I'd have it on the ground and I'd say, okay, about here, here, and here. I've already decided I want 4 drawers in here. They don't necessarily have to be the same size, but at least fairly even spaced. Generally in kitchen cabinets with a 4-drawer cabinet with kitchens, you have drawers that kind of get a little bit bigger as you go down, and it looks good as it goes down. It's totally up to you. So I know I want one at the top here around 6 inches, and I'm not putting really any dimensions in yet. And another one right under it about the same. And I would like 2 bigger drawers on the bottom that are also the same. So this one and this one are the same, and the bottom 2 are the same in height. I'll figure out dimensions after. But after that, the other side I was going to have doors. Now I don't need to draw them on, I just want the face frame right now, but I'm going to have 2 doors that open out. So this is fine the way it is, it's open, and that's the way I'm going to have it. But the next step is, we need to start figuring out exact sizes for pieces so I can go in the shop and start cutting my pieces. There's 2 things that we always start with. Number 1, we start with the side panels, the side pieces on the left and on the right. And then after that, we also build the shelves that go in between. We're going to build what's called a carcass.